Hi, welcome to my show called in Manhattan, Math, Science, and Ethical Living. I'm going to try to make this segment that I'm going to start with go viral over the internet to transform this world swiftly. So I'm going to talk about first Robert Reich's idea, what he calls a reverse income tax. In his book, Aftershock, the Next Economy and America's Future. His basic idea is for U.S. workers, only those who work full-time, he will shift $600 billion yearly in income from the top 5% of high-income earners to the bottom 95%. He claims that top 5%, and all his figures are in 2009, he claims that the top 5% are in the range of $160,000 a year. So all those above will have their taxes increased. Well, everybody below $160,000, 95% of American families or individuals will have their taxes lowered. If you make less than $50,000, you'll have no income tax, but instead you will get an earned income tax credit for those making less than $20,000. Robert Reich, who was Secretary of Labor under Bill Clinton and is now a professor of public policy at the University of California, Berkeley, wants to give those who make less than $20,000 a year, he wants to give them an extra $15,000. The minimum wage for a full-time worker making $7.50 an hour earns about $15,000 or $15,600, $300 a week. They will get an extra $15,000. So he is doubling the minimum wage. For anyone making less than $20,000, they will get $15,000. And for those making $30,000 a year, they will get an earned income tax credit of an extra $10,000. And those earning $40,000 will get an extra $5,000. And at 50, it goes to zero. And there'll be no income tax below $50,000. And from $50,000 to $90,000, the tax rate will be 10%, reduced to 10%. And from $90,000 to $160,000, the tax rate will be reduced to 20%, marginal tax rate. And above $160,000 to $260,000, the tax rate will go to 40%. And from $260,000 to $400,000, the tax rate will be 50%. And above $400,000, the marginal tax rate will be 55%. Now, he calls this reverse income tax. He claims that the bottom 95% don't have adequate purchasing power, even though they produce or help produce most of the wealth. Most of the wealth has gone to the top 10%. The bottom 90% has been given short shrift. So I'm hoping this will go viral, and Robert Reich's ideas will be presented, because if we unite, this is an economic justice issue. This is only one piece of the picture. Robert Reich also wants to promote a carbon tax of $35 a metric ton of carbon dioxide. The first year that would bring in $210 billion. He has 6 other programs besides the reverse income tax. So maybe I should discuss them also. I made some notes here from the book, Aftershock, 2010 book by Robert Reich. He says number 2 issue, beside a reverse income tax, is a reemployment system with wage insurance that encourages workers laid off to take lower paying jobs. Workers will get paid 90% of the difference in pay between their old and new job. Workers who need additional skills will get income support of 90% of their former wages for up to a year for full training or education. Training for critical needed jobs will get support for another year of education. This will cost $3 billion a year, and above the $2.5 million the federal government pays now for unemployment insurance in the average year. A severance tax on profitable employer would make up for any shortfalls in revenues for the reemployment program. The severance tax would be 75% of the worker's salary who was laid off. So that's his plan for a reemployment system. Then number 3, school vouchers based on family income. Poor families, he says, currently the average student gets $8,000 now spent for a child in each state. Poor families would get $14,000 education voucher, while rich families would only get $2,000 for each child. This would come from the $8,000 now spent per child in each state. A total of $20 billion per year would be spent on early childhood education. That would come from a reverse income tax. Number 4, his idea is college loan linked to subsequent earnings. Tuition should be free in all public colleges and universities. Students who get loans to private colleges would have to pay 10% interest for 10 years of their work to support free education, to public higher education, and for future private school loans. Okay, so I'm just going over Robert Reich's various 7 plans he has to improve our economic system. Number 5, he says Medicare for all. Savings to cover the entire population, he claims, could range from, it's estimated, from $58 billion to $400 billion a year. Savings. Number 6, public goods. Public goods like public transportation, parks, recreation facilities, museums, and libraries should be free of charge to users. Free public transportation, he claims, would reduce traffic congestion that is estimated to cost Americans $85 billion in wasted hours and gas, and would cut carbon emissions. The benefits would outweigh the costs. And finally, number 7 plan is money out of politics. Match dollar for dollar whatever the opponent raises privately. Allowed to make contributions. Be put into a blind trust with criminal penalties for disclosure. Sever the quid from the quo in quid pro quo. Quid is the money, and the quo is the political favors. So that's Robert Reich's plan, starting at page 129 in this book. I don't agree with giving the full-time workers $600 billion. I would say my idea is to give only half of that money to full-time workers. That would raise the minimum wage from $7.50, instead of going to $15, it would only go to $11. Ralph Nader claims that it ought to be $10, so that should be enough, $11 an hour. So my idea would be to give half the money to the full-time workers, and the other half, $300 billion to the poor, sick, and needy. What can you do with $100 billion? You can build yearly 1 million SROs, single room occupancies, at $100,000 each, because $100,000 times 1 million SROs would be $100 billion. And with the other $200 billion, we can build new cities on the Great Plains or where the lakes are to get the water for the cities, the Great Lakes, and they can be supported. See, the Great Plains has enormous wind potential. They can make all our electricity 4 times over that we currently use. There are 5 states that each can make a tera-kilowatt-hour of electricity, and this country only uses 4 tera-kilowatt-hours. But to do that, we have to ramp up the wind power plants that make the wind generators, that make the windmills, that make the electricity. To do that, my idea is to build cities. We could take the $300 billion and divide it up into 10 different cities. That would be $30 billion. If you had, I was thinking, to build a single room occupancy would be $100,000. To pay people to come out there $100,000, that's not a bad deal. When the median wage for a family is $40,000 or $50,000. So, and then another $100,000 to build the infrastructure. So, at $300,000 per person, and you divide it into $300 billion, you would get 1 million people in 1 year. And if you divide up the 10 cities, it would be $100,000, 100,000 people per city to make times 10 cities, it would make 1 million people. And in 10 years, every year, you get $300 billion from the top 5%. That would make support for 10 million people. So my idea is we can train the unemployed that way. We can let the nonviolent prisoners out. They're mostly 80% of them. 80% are drug-related. There are 2 million prisoners. 80%, there's 1.6 million of them to be let out to go. Normally they would go home and get back into drugs because they get pulled by their peers. But if they go back to out to these new cities that are being built, they won't have the influence that pulls them down, their network, their old network. So, and then students get the skills needed to create the solar future. So that's a vision I have. And look at building a whole new city from scratch, 10 of them. And what's even more important is, right now I think the wind in this country, there are 10 companies that make wind mills to generate electricity, and each of these companies are at maximum capacity. So each city can duplicate and then reduplicate. So they're hiring about 20,000 people. So each city you would have 2,000, 2,000, 2,000. And then these people can help educate the unemployed. And not only for wind power, it could be done for photovoltaics, making sunlight into electricity, or it could make solar collectors to making solar energy into hot water. And then we could develop the skills for energy efficiency. Most of our houses were built on the cheap, and therefore they need retrofitting, weatherization, to keep the heat from leaking out in the winter or leaking in the summer. And so they can be trained in those skills. And then they can be trained in geothermal, 10 feet down. You can put pipes that go to a heat pump that then will make cool in the summer or heat in the winter, because at 10 to 12 feet down the temperature is constant, around 40 degrees Fahrenheit. And the difference in temperature is what a heat pump works on to make heat or cool. And that's economically viable right now, according to the Secretary of Energy, Stephen Chu. So this is my modification of Robert Reich's plan to get $600 billion yearly in income from the top 5% to the bottom 95%. So let's go on with economic justice. What does economic justice mean? You know, I was looking at a dictionary definition here. Economic justice is defined as, quote, this is in my Merriam-Webster dictionary, 9th edition, which is, I think, up to the 11th edition already. But anyway, quote, economics is a social science concerned chiefly with description and analysis of production, distribution, and consumption of goods and services. I would modify that by talking about ownership. And I would talk about goods as not money. That is, if money is not considered a good. That how money is made also is an important question. Justice is defined by me as from the dictionary, with many meanings, to treat fairly or adequately. Adequately is an important word, and especially adequately in meeting human rights and their responsibilities as enumerated in the Earth Charter and the UN, quote, Universal Declaration of Human Rights. See, now, in the UN Human Declaration of Human Rights, Article 23, number 3, states the human right of just and favorable remuneration that is to be supplemented if necessary. But more important is Article 25, which states the right to an adequate standard of living for health and well-being that includes food, clothing, housing, and medical care, and the right to security in circumstances beyond one's control. Okay, so that's economic justice, how income is distributed fairly. Right now it's not being done that way. The people who have tremendous skills are capable of accumulating all the wealth at the expense of the bottom 90% of income earners. So let's see some other ideas here on Robert Reich. Or should I use the other side? We can talk about the other issues in a minute. So, for economic justice in the U.S., shift yearly $600 billion income from the top 5% to the bottom 95%. This is my idea. This is Reich's idea, and I modified it. This is my idea that I have, is to mandate, not to take a penny away from the top. I had it for the top 10%, but it could be for the top 5% or the top 1%, to mandate that they, the top 5% invest yearly $300 billion. That would be about 10% of their pre-tax income, roughly, in the weatherization of their houses and in renewable energy projects and businesses. So that's an idea. They don't lose anything. By weatherization, they get a return on their investment in 5, 10, even 15 years would be a good return on investments. So they don't have to only speculate for high returns. They could get moderate returns. At the same time, you know, make energy security for this country so we don't have to spill blood and treasure over oil. So we don't have to pollute our, you know, our country. So Reich's idea, which doesn't have to, we don't have to follow everything he says. I would follow James Hansen's idea. Reich says charge $35 a metric ton of carbon dioxide to get $210 billion in the first year. I would do what James Hansen wants. Who's James Hansen? He's the director of NASA's Goddard Space Center, who stood up to Bush. They tried to squelch him, but he was saying he's concerned about the dangers of a rising ocean. And it could be a lot worse in terms of the dangers. And so James Hansen wants to share equally the money from a carbon tax. So the first year, every American, there is right now 311 million. I don't know if that includes all the undocumented workers, which might be the rate. So on average, 300, if you divide 300 million into 210 billion, you'd get $700 per person. So what we can do with that? Every school child, there are 53 million school children from the ages of kindergarten to high school, 12. Oh, it's time to wind up. Time to wind up. I got a couple of minutes. We didn't get through everything. In the fourth year, carbon tax would be raised to $115 a metric ton of carbon dioxide. And that would, according to Robert Reich, in his book Aftershock, it would bring in $600 billion in that year, in the fourth year. That would give each American $2,000. I was just saying, in terms of the $700, instead of the money going to the children directly, they could, each one of them, 53 million, get a high-end laptop computer with high-end programs in it. Every one in the first year. And with $2,000, we can do a lot more. So, there are other issues I'll come back in the second half of the show. I'm dividing this show into two parts. So the key idea, let me put up maybe my box number. You can email me at dkc@gmail.com, dkc@gmail.com, and get an email back automatically. And you can send my email to at least 10 of your contacts willing to do likewise for economic justice. And maybe we can spread this message anyway. In 25 seconds I will be back. So email me at dkc@gmail.com and get a leaflet back that you can spread to all your people. Hi, welcome to my show. In Brooklyn it's called Ethical Social Networking. In Queens it's called Prosper Sane. And in Manhattan it's called Math, Science, and Ethical Living. And we were talking about Robert Reich's income tax plan in his 2010 book, Aftershock, starting from page 129 onward, which gives $600 billion yearly in income from the top 5% to the bottom 90%, 5% of full-time workers. My idea would be to only give $300 billion to full-time workers, and the other $300 billion to the poor, sick, and needy, to build 10 cities on the Great Plains. And these 10 cities, anyway. So economic justice, we were just talking about the income tax idea of shifting from the top 5% to the bottom 95%. But there are other ideas. Income mandate. To mandate, not take a penny away, but to mandate for the top 1%, 5%, 10%, which is over 11 million homes, top 10%, to weatherize their homes so heat doesn't be wasted by leaking out and in. So that's my idea, a mandate. And then 10% of their pre-tax income, that could be on the top 5%, $300 billion, on the top 10%, $500 billion every year. And the excess money would go into solar energy, geothermal energy, projects, and investments in small renewable businesses, renewable energy businesses, like wind power, sun power, geothermal energy, and so on, hydroelectric energy. Okay, then there's the carbon tax. The first year, it would be $35 a metric ton, and that would bring in $210 billion the first year. And if it was like spread equally among 300 million Americans, every American the first year would get $700. And we'd raise it gradually. So in 4 years, it would be $115 a metric ton. And according to Robert Reich, it would bring in $600 billion a year. And if you divide that by 300 million people, each person would get $2,000. So a family of 4 would get $8,000 in the 4th year. And then solar energy, renewable energy would become competitive. And we could organize over economic justice. And then there's a wealth tax. Right now, the rich, well, have about, the top 10% have about $42 trillion in net worth. Their assets minus their liabilities is the net worth. And the bottom 90% have only $12 trillion in net worth. So the top 10% got $30 more trillion net worth. And currently, our national debt is a little over $15 trillion. Beginning of the new year of 2012. And so the rich could, if they were given 2% tax on their wealth, that would bring in about $840 billion the first year. And every year they seem to be able to make a couple of extra $1 trillion, the top 10% every year. So if they just stuck at $42 trillion, you know, we'd pay off our national debt in 18 years. Then there's the other idea, besides taxing wealth, we could cap wealth. You know, so no one could have more than $20 million, as an example, relative to everybody else. So, and then they might be required to put $10 million in a long-term 30-year treasury bond. I think currently it's about 2%, so they would get $200,000 without working, which is 5 4 times more than the $50,000 the median has. So, and then there's vegetarianism, which has tremendous benefits. Right now, we're wasting 90% of the calories, 90% of the protein. We're only getting 10% back. From plant food. And then we're wasting enormous water. And we're harming animals, being cruel to animals. We could promote love and develop our spiritual self. And we're also poisoning ourselves with these products. We're not meant to be eating animals. And Medicare for All is another idea that Robert Reich has. So how do we organize? We can organize, get 10 people in a day, it could be a week, could do likewise. Then we get 100 people in either 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months. It could even be done in 2 hours. If we got 10 people in an hour by email and then phone them, it's doable. For those who are ambitious, and those who aren't, it could be done in 2 months, 10 people in a month, to promote a common issue, unifying issue, which is an income tax on the wealthy to share with the bottom 95%. Half to full-time workers, and the other half to the poor, sick, and needy. And one way to government program to build cities to train the unemployed, the prisoners, the students in these cities, the homeless. So I call that a 1-10-100 network. It's just a network that can elect lawmakers with the write-in vote. Lisa Murkowski won with a write-in vote in 2010 to become a U.S. Senator of Alaska. She was kicked out of the Republican primary, and she used the write-in vote to win. So it's doable. We could put in Al Gore, Senator of Tennessee, Ralph Nader, and all these other big shots who are dedicated to making a better world, who are honorable people, who aren't concerned with money, they're concerned with doing something for humanity. We can elect them, these people. So right now the Congress is run by the Republicans. They ought to be replaced because they are interested in giving money to the rich and taking it from the poor and middle class. It's obscene. So, and if you can't get 10 people, you know, get 3 people. 1, 3, 9 network. And then in the 4th cycle, it's 27, and the 5th cycle, well, that's the first cycle would be 3, 2nd cycle would be 9, 3rd cycle would be 27, the 4th cycle would be 81, then 243, and then by the 17th cycle it would be 129 million people. Could be done in 17 hours, or 17 days, or 17 weeks. By getting 3 people, new people, uninvolved, to promote economic justice. To shift money from the top 5%. They got, it's not going to undermine them so much, the shift of wealth, but it will do tremendous good for the country, for everybody in the bottom 95%. It's a simple idea. We should get behind it. overcome economic injustice, to make economic justice. So in 19 time cycles, even with 3, you'd have the whole world, over 1 billion people united for the common good, for economic justice. Okay, just to reiterate the carbon tax. Well, I won't do that. Let's here. This just shows you the wealth disparity. The U.S. top 10% of wealth have currently about $42 trillion. The bottom 90% in wealth have $12 trillion. Thus, the top 10% has $30 more trillion than the bottom 90%. And currently, we owe $15 trillion, a little bit more, in our national debt, the U.S. national debt. A 2% yearly tax on the top 10% could pay off our national debt in about 18 years, assuming but they've been accumulating, the top 10%, over $2 trillion every year, extra money. They know how to do it. See? They could have paid off our national debt by only accumulating $1 trillion a year over the 9 years from 98 to 2007. Our national debt was only $9 trillion, so in 9 years, and they would have still not only made $1 trillion a year extra, but they would have also could have invested over another $1 trillion in this country to build our infrastructure. Okay, so in 18 years, if they don't accumulate an extra couple of $1 trillion every year, which they're capable of doing, the top 10%, then in less than 18 years, our national debt could be paid off. The vegetarian benefits. There'll be 900% more calories. 9 times more. It's 900%. Same with protein. There'll be less cruelty to animals if we stopped eating them. That includes cattle, pigs, chicken, birds, and fish. We'd have more love and more water. It takes a tremendous amount of water to keep them alive. And we'd be much more healthy by going to a plant-based diet. These are my interests, basically. I want to learn to awaken love through meditation. That's what the Master says at sos.org. Swami Rajinder Singh, his name is. I'm mobilizing for economic justice. Hopefully I will put up some of these things. If not in this show, my next show, where will be my second attempt at using these new signs I made. Let's create 1-1000 citizen networks, or 139 networks, which could be a school organizing team. 139, 13 people in a team. 1, 3, and 9 is 13. We can unite for $300 billion yearly for solar energy, or even 500. That's the top 10%. 10% of the pre-tax income on the top 10%, or on the top 5% would be $300 billion. My show in Manhattan is seen on Saturdays, 7 to 8 a.m. on 56 of Time Warner, 83 of RCN, 34 of Verizon. It's shown worldwide on mnn.org. It's called Math, Science, and Ethical Living. You get innovative ideas to transform yourself and education. Transform your school. Do now something significant for humanity. Problem: how can the top 10% solve the job, energy, and climate crisis? Well, resolution requires the top 10% to weatherize their homes and invest in solar energy. That's my idea about mandating interest. Get over $500 billion yearly from 10% of their pre-tax income for energy. You don't take a penny away. Nurture. Get Congress to mandate the top 10% invest wisely the 10% of their pre-tax income. Okay. My interest is to bring in the solar age swiftly and to nurture, to form academic teams, to unite for economic justice, to create 1-10-100 citizen networks. So I'm interested in dedicated people, parents, students, teachers, and the public, willing to help improve the curriculum. Or help with my TV show. How can we put stuff up on YouTube, parts of my show, to make it go viral, so the whole world can be united behind economic justice? A unifying issue. So contact me at dkseed@gmail.com and you'll automatically get back a leaflet that you can promote. Or my box number, 2866, New York 10163. Here's something I developed, the print writing method. This is an acronym. Each letter stands for something. You state the problem and the resources, or the resolution, the general solution, the cost-benefit analysis, the interest, and then the steps you got to take to solve the problem. Or I could say spin. Maybe just state the solution first, then you state the problem. Write 100 to 140 words, leaflet on the solar future, solar age that we're going to have to create to get off fossil fuels, oil, natural gas, and coal. And write about economic justice for my TV show or elsewhere. So send me an article. And through economic fairness, we can solve unemployment, get full employment. We can have a government works program to help build 10 cities on the Great Plains with $300 billion a year from the top 5% in income. We can solve the climate crisis if we invest heavily in renewable energy and wind energy and solar energy and geothermal energy. We can stop poverty worldwide. If all the rich, we're an example for all the rich in all the countries. Do something to build the solar age, the solar future. And we can stop unbridled greed by limiting wealth and taxing wealth first and limiting wealth. We can require the rich to weatherize their own homes and invest in renewable energy independence. And the key idea to do that is through 1-10-100 citizen networks. We can unite easily and swiftly for economic fairness. Just get 10 people in a day, a week, even an hour, it's doable, we do likewise. Then in 8 days, weeks, or hours, America would be united for economic justice. Email my videos. I have videos or leaflets from YouTube at DK1C to your contacts to do likewise. Create just a now for renewable energy and economic independence. Or I could say energy independence. So maybe we should do a little spiritual work. The science of spirituality is headed by Swami Rajinder Singh. They promote treating everyone as a brother or sister. Stay in your religion, but live up to it. Even atheists can meditate. Do daily meditation. Start with a minute and a minute of meditation. I'll go over it. I'll be going over that in a few seconds. Do 5 and 5. You know, we have this looking meditation and a listening meditation, and 10 and 10, 15 and 15, until you get proficient. The Master says when you get proficient and enjoying the meditation, then build up to an hour and an hour. We're supposed to do 2.5 hours of meditation every day, but only after we become proficient and enjoy doing it. And the Master claims 1 hour of meditation done correctly will be equal to 4 hours of sleep. And the Master wants us to do selfless service. We do service to earn a living, and we do selfless service to help the poor, sick, and needy without expecting anything in return, because it's the right thing to do. And you get free initiation into proper meditation. Like Swami Rajinder is saying, but you got to be willing to be a vegetarian, to avoid street drugs, or what you call recreational drugs, not to drink alcohol, because it causes consciousness, and to work for your living, to support yourself through the sweat of your brow. And you go online and download free videos and writings by Swami Rajinder Singh at sos.org. In Manhattan on Saturdays they have a free talk from 11:30 a.m. lunchtime to 12:30 p.m. And then after 12:30 p.m. they have a free vegetarian lunch and socializing till about 1:45 p.m. in the afternoon. And they meet at 40 East 35th Street downstairs between Park and Madison Avenue. It's closer to Park Avenue. As you face the church downtown south, to the right of the church, there's a staircase going downstairs where they meet. They rent a room there. So here are the meditation benefits. You retain inner peace, which allows you to spread outer peace. You achieve more in school and work and on your projects. You get guidance, so you don't, you know where your clearer goals and how to get there. You awaken true love. The Master claims that the radiant being that comes near a death, NDE, a near-death experience, which is a low-level experience, where you get unconditional love and a life review for about 10% of those people who have a near-death experience. You eventually would be guided to the inner plane of true love. So here's the meditation instructions. I only got a few minutes left. end this show. And so if you want to contact me to do some work, meaningful work, you know, I'm willing to educate a student to go online, educate a student for free in math and science and writing and ethical living. I'm looking for anyone who's interested in coming on my show as a co-host to develop a curriculum in math, science, and help with my TV show. Contact me at dkseed@gmail.com, and you get back automatically a leaflet on economic justice, Robert Reich's ideas, and my modification of his ideas. So let's unite into 1-1000 citizen networks to promote economic justice and make this world a place of peace, joy, and prosperity for all citizens of the world. It's doable if we would unite. So contact me at dkseed@gmail.com, and you'll get back a leaflet automatically. And now this show is going into Brooklyn and Queens and ending. And so long for a while. Let's unite for economic justice and build a world of peace, joy, and prosperity for all. Thank you all. And maybe now some of my show will be going onto the internet. And there you can spread this message to all your contacts. And let's make this world united over a common issue, economic justice. And have a great day, and remember to love your neighbor. Bye-bye.